She was 8 months pregnant when her millionaire husband slapped her across the face in front of 500 people. The cameras caught everything: the betrayal, the humiliation, and the moment he walked off with another woman who was also pregnant. Everyone thought it was over for her, but what no one knew was that she kept everything: every message, every receipt, every secret that could destroy him. 1 year later, she returned, not for revenge, but for justice. And when she walked into his world again, she didn't come alone. She came with proof. This is the millionaire's mistake. Stay till the end. You won't believe how it all turns out. And if stories of courage, betrayal, and redemption move you, hit like, drop a comment, share this story, and subscribe for more powerful dramas like this. This story carries a powerful message for every woman who's ever felt erased, silenced, or made to feel small by someone who was supposed to love them. It's proof that your darkest moment doesn't define you. Your response to it does. No matter how broken you feel right now, you have the strength to rebuild. Watch until the very end, because the woman who rises from these ashes will inspire you to never give up on yourself. The chandeliers in the Hartford Mansion ballroom glittered like frozen stars. 500 guests filled the marble hall, their champagne glasses catching the light as an orchestra played softly in the corner. A banner stretched across the stage read, "Hartford Digital New Horizons Gala," in elegant script. Everyone who mattered in the tech wuss world was there, dressed in designer gowns and tailored tuxedos, ready to celebrate the next chapter of Blake Hartford's billion-dollar empire. Elena Hartford stood at the entrance, her hand resting protectively on her 8-month pregnant belly. She wore a seafoam blue gown that had been custom-made to accommodate her growing daughter. The invitation had arrived that morning by courier, marked urgent. "Be there tonight. Important announcement about our family. Blake." She had been confused. They hadn't spoken directly in 3 weeks, only through terse text messages about doctor appointments and household matters. But the message said, family, so she came. The moment she stepped into the ballroom, conversations stuttered and died. Heads turned, women whispered behind their hands, men shifted uncomfortably in their expensive shoes. Elena felt the weight of their stares, but kept her chin up, kept walking. Something was terribly wrong. She could feel it in the air, thick and electric, like the moment before a storm breaks. Blake stood at the podium, impossibly handsome in his custom suit. Beside him, in a crimson dress that hugged every curve, stood Sienna Brennan, Elena's college roommate, Blake's executive assistant for the past 2 years. And, Elena noticed with a jolt of shock that nearly stopped her heart, also visibly pregnant. Blake's voice boomed through the microphone. "Tonight, I celebrate new beginnings with the woman who truly supports my vision." Elena's feet carried her forward, though her mind screamed at her to run. "Blake, what's going on?" His eyes, when they met hers, were cold. Stranger's eyes. "You were supposed to sign the papers quietly. Why are you here?" "What papers? You asked me to come tonight. The message said it was about our family." "I'm done pretending, Elena." His voice carried to every corner of the vast room. "I choose her." He pointed at Sienna, who smiled with the satisfaction of a cat who had caught the canary. The phones came out then. Dozens of them, hundreds maybe. Red recording lights blinked like demon eyes in the dimness. Elena's voice cracked. "Blake, I'm carrying your daughter." The slap came without warning. His palm connected with her cheek with a crack that echoed off the marble floors and crystal chandeliers. The sound seemed to freeze time itself. Elena stumbled backward, her hand flying to her face. She tasted blood where her lip had split against her teeth. The world tilted and blurred. Collective gasps rippled through the crowd, but no one moved to help her. No one intervened. They just stood there, filming, watching, waiting to see what would happen next. "Get her out of my house," Blake said to the security guards stationed near the stage. Elena found her voice, though it came out small and broken. "This is my house. I designed every room. I chose every piece of furniture. I made this place a home." Sienna stepped forward, her hand resting on her own pregnant belly in a gesture that was pure theater. "Not anymore, sweetie. Blake's lawyers changed the deed this morning. Legally, you're trespassing." The security guards took Elena's arms. She tried to pull away, but they were too strong. "Blake! Blake, please! What about our baby? What about everything we built together?" Blake had already turned away. He took Sienna's hand and lifted it to his lips. The orchestra began playing again, as if on cue. Guests slowly returned to their champagne and forced conversations, desperate to pretend they hadn't just witnessed something monstrous. "Blake!" Elena screamed as they dragged her toward the exit. "You can't do this! Blake!" But he didn't turn around, didn't even flinch. He just stood there, beside Sienna, accepting congratulations from investors and colleagues as if his pregnant wife wasn't being physically removed from the home she had created. They threw her out into the rain. Literally, threw her. Elena landed hard on the wet pavement of the circular driveway, barely catching herself before her belly hit the ground. The mansion doors slammed shut behind her with the finality of a coffin closing. Then came the paparazzi, swarming like sharks drawn to blood in the water. Camera flashes exploded in her face, blinding and relentless. "Elena, did you cheat on Blake? Is the baby even his? How does it feel to be replaced by a younger woman? Any comment on Blake's accusations of emotional abuse?" Elena curled into herself on the wet driveway, protecting her belly with both arms, rain mixing with the tears and blood on her face. The lights, the shouts, the cameras, it all blurred together into a nightmare she couldn't wake up from. A car screeched to a stop beside her. The passenger door flew open. "Get in!" Maddie Chen, her best friend since college, reached across the seat. "Elena, get in the car now!" Elena crawled into the vehicle, leaving her dignity on the wet pavement along with one of her expensive heels. Maddie hit the gas before the door even closed, leaving the paparazzi shouting after them. "I saw it on Instagram Live," Maddie said, her knuckles white on the steering wheel. "Half of Twitter saw it. Jesus, Elena, what just happened?" Elena's phone buzzed incessantly in her clutch. She pulled it out with shaking hands. 10,567 notifications. The video of Blake slapping her had already been viewed millions of times. Hashtags were trending. Slapgate, Hartford scandal, tech wife abuse. "That's me," Elena whispered, watching a stranger's recording of her own humiliation play on loop. "That's my life ending in 4K resolution." "You're coming to my apartment," Maddie said. "You're not alone. Whatever this is, we'll figure it out together." But Elena barely heard her. She was watching the news coverage on her phone. The headlines were already spinning the story. Tech billionaire escapes toxic marriage. Blake Hartford finds love after years of emotional abuse from unstable wife. Sources close to Hartford claim wife hid mental health issues. Her phone rang. Unknown number. Against her better judgment, she answered. "Mrs. Hartford, this is Richard Moss, representing Blake Hartford. You have 24 hours to vacate the premises at 1247 Riverside Drive. All your personal accounts have been frozen pending divorce proceedings. A prenuptial agreement signed in 2014 stipulates that all assets revert to the original capital investor. You'll receive one suitcase of belongings tomorrow. Do not contact Mr. Hartford directly, or we will file a restraining order." The line went dead before Elena could respond. "They can't do that," Maddie said. having heard the whole thing on speaker. That's not legal. That's not even human. Elena's email pinged. She opened it with trembling fingers. Pre-nuptial agreement, fully executed. There was her signature at the bottom, young and naive and trusting. She had signed it when she was 22 years old, before they had anything, when Blake insisted it was just a formality his mother required. She hadn't even read it carefully. Why would she? They were in love, they were partners, they were forever. The relevant clause seemed to burn itself into her vision. In the event of marital dissolution, all assets revert to the original capital investor. Secondary party waives all claims to shared property, business interests, and spousal support. Original capital investor, Elena read aloud. That's him? But he used my father's money. My father gave him $500,000 to start that company, and I gave him every penny I'd saved. I have the bank records. Then we fight, Maddie said firmly. Tomorrow, tonight, you sleep. But Elena couldn't sleep, because the baby she'd been protecting all night chose that moment to make her presence known with a sharp, cramping pain that stole Elena's breath. The pain scale, Maddie demanded, already calculating hospital routes in her head. 1 to 10. 7, maybe 8. We're going to the hospital. Now. The emergency room at County General smelled like disinfectant and desperation. It wasn't the private birthing suite Elena had toured at St. Mary's 3 months ago. There were no soothing water features or luxury linens, just fluorescent lights and the sound of other women in labor behind thin curtain dividers. A nurse checked Elena's chart. Insurance shows as inactive. Do you have another policy number? What? No. I'm covered under my husband's platinum plan through Hartford Digital. System shows it was terminated this morning. We'll need payment information before we can proceed with anything beyond emergency stabilization. Maddie stepped between them. She's in active labor. You're legally required to treat her. Bill me if you have to, but you're not turning away a woman having contractions. Rio. The nurse nodded and disappeared to make arrangements. Elena gripped Maddie's hand as another contraction rolled through her. He canceled my insurance? Well, I'm 8 months pregnant with his child. Don't think about him, Maddie said. Focus on her. Focus on your daughter. The labor lasted 12 hours. 12 hours of pain and fear and uncertainty. 12 hours of nurses checking her with tired eyes and doctors asking questions about payment plans between cervical exams. 12 hours of hell that ended in the most beautiful sound Elena had ever heard. A baby crying, her baby crying. It's a girl, the doctor said, placing the tiny, perfect human on Elena's chest. Healthy, strong lungs. Hi, Sophia, Elena sobbed, touching her daughter's impossibly small fingers. Hi, baby girl. Mommy's here. Mommy's got you. For one perfect moment, everything else disappeared. The slap, the humiliation, the betrayal, the fear. None of it mattered. There was only this tiny life depending on her. This overwhelming love that was bigger than any pain Blake could inflict. Then Elena's phone buzzed on the table beside the hospital bed. A text from Blake. Just 4 words that shattered the moment into pieces. Paternity test required first. The morning after Sophia was born, Elena sat in the hospital discharge office, holding her daughter, while an administrator explained why they couldn't leave. Maddie stood beside her, furious and helpless in equal measure. Your account has been flagged for suspected identity fraud, the administrator said, not quite meeting Elena's eyes. Until it's resolved, we can't process your discharge. Identity fraud? Elena's voice came out flat with disbelief. I'm Elena Hartford. My husband is Blake Hartford, CEO of Hartford Digital. Call him if you don't believe me. According to our system, Blake Hartford is married to a Sienna Brennan. There's a police report filed this morning claiming you're impersonating his ex-wife for financial gain. The words didn't make sense. Elena stared at the woman, trying to process what she was hearing. He had filed a police report against her, claiming she was committing fraud by using his name. "This is insane," Maddie said. "We were at their house last night. I have photos from their wedding. I was the maid of honor." "I understand this is difficult," the administrator continued, "but the total bill is $87,340. We need payment before discharge, or we'll have to involve hospital security and possibly law enforcement." Elena checked her bank account on her phone. $340. That was all that remained of the joint accounts she'd had access to yesterday. Everything else had been frozen or transferred. "My father died 6 months ago," Elena said quietly. "My mother has dementia. She's in a nursing home in Ohio. I have no family who can help." Sophia started crying, picking up on her mother's distress. Elena rocked her gently, tears streaming down her own face. "I can cover $5,000 on my credit card," Maddie offered, "but that's all I have available." The office door opened. A woman in her 60s entered, elegant in a Chanel suit that probably cost more than the average car. Catherine Hartford, Blake's mother. "I'll cover the bill," Catherine announced. "Put it on my account, the Hartford family account. You have the information." The administrator looked relieved and hurried out to process the payment. Catherine sat down across from Elena, her eyes fixed on baby Sophia. "She has Blake's eyes," Catherine said softly. "And your strength, I hope." "Why are you here?" Elena asked. "Because I saw the video. The whole world saw the video. And I'm ashamed of my son, of myself for raising a man capable of that." Catherine opened her expensive purse and pulled out a checkbook, the kind people rarely used anymore, the kind that signaled old money and serious business. "I'm writing you a check for $2 million, Catherine said, pen already moving across the paper. "It will cover all your expenses, legal fees, and give you and Sophia a fresh start." Elena watched the zeros appear on the check. $2 million. More money than she'd ever seen in one place. Enough to change everything, enough to give Sophia the life she deserved. "There's one condition," Catherine continued, sliding the check across the table. "You sign a non-disclosure agreement. You don't speak to the press about Blake. You let him save face publicly. You disappear quietly." Elena stared at the check. $2 million. Safety, stability, a good school for Sophia, a nice apartment, no more struggling. Maddie leaned close. "Elena, that's life-changing money. Take it. You've suffered enough." Elena reached for the check. Her fingers were almost touching it when the television mounted on the wall caught her attention. A morning talk show. And there, sitting on the couch looking handsome and sympathetic, was Blake. "We're thrilled to announce that Sienna is pregnant," Blake was saying to the host. "I'm so excited to be a father with someone who truly supports my vision and understands the demands of my work." The host leaned forward with practiced concern. "There are reports that you have another child, a daughter born just yesterday." Blake's expression hardened. "We're awaiting paternity results. I have serious doubts about whether that child is biologically mine. My legal team is handling the situation." Sienna touched his arm in a gesture of support. "It's been difficult watching Blake deal with accusations and manipulation, but we're focused on our family now, on our future together." They kissed for the camera. The studio audience applauded. The whole world watched Blake Hartford paint himself as the victim, while Elena held his daughter in a county hospital, facing down $87,000 in medical bills. Something cold and hard settled in Elena's chest where her heart used to be. She looked at Catherine's check, then at Catherine herself. "No," Elena said. "Elena, be reasonable," Catherine started. "Your son took everything from me." Elena's voice was steady now. Clear. My home, my savings, my dignity. He used my father's loan, $500,000 that my father worked his whole life to save. Money he gave Blake because he believed in us, in our marriage, in the family we were building. Blake never paid him back. My father died 6 months ago, still believing Blake was an honorable man who would do the right thing. Elena tore the check in half, then in half again. She handed the pieces back to Catherine. "I'm not disappearing. I'm not signing anything. I'm going to make sure the entire world knows exactly who Blake Hartford really is." Catherine was quiet for a long moment, then slowly she smiled. "Good," Catherine said. She pulled a business card from her purse. "I was hoping you'd say that. This is my personal attorney, Richard Sullivan. He's been gathering evidence on Blake for months, and I'll fund your legal team, all of it, every penny." "Wait," Maddie said. "The check was a test?" "I needed to know if you'd fight," Catherine said, standing. "Blake has destroyed enough lives. It's time someone stopped him." She looked at Sophia one more time, her expression soft with grandmother's love. "Fight for her, Elena, and when you win, let me be part of her life. I want to be the grandmother she deserves, even if my son couldn't be the father she needs." After Catherine left, Elena and Maddie sat in silence for a long moment. "So what do we do?" Maddie finally asked. Elena looked down at Sophia, sleeping peacefully in her arms. "We call that attorney, and we go to war." 1 week later, Elena sat in a corner office overlooking the city skyline. Richard Sullivan, Catherine's attorney, sat across from her with folders spread across the mahogany desk. Beside him was David Cooper, an investigative journalist who looked like he'd slept in his clothes. "Mrs. Hartford," Sullivan began, "I've reviewed your case. The prenuptial agreement is ironclad, almost. But there's one loophole." "What loophole?" Elena asked. Sophia was sleeping in a carrier at her feet. Maddie had insisted on coming but waited in the reception area, ready to help if the baby woke. "The agreement states that all assets revert to the original capital investor. Blake has always claimed he self-funded Hartford Digital. But if we can prove he used your family's money as seed capital, the entire prenup is void due to fraud." David Cooper slid a folder across the desk. "I've been investigating Blake's company for 18 months. Started as a puff piece about self-made tech billionaires. But I'm a journalist. I follow the money, and the money told a very different story." He opened the folder. Bank statements, wire transfers, emails, all dated from 2014. "June 15th, 2014, your father, James Bennett, wired $500,000 to Blake Hartford. The memo line says, 'Business loan, Hartford Digital Seed Capital.'" Elena's eyes filled with tears. She hadn't known the exact amount. Her father had just said he was helping them get started, that he believed in Blake's vision. "My dad was a mechanic," Elena said softly. "He worked 60-hour weeks his whole life. That was his entire retirement fund." "September 3rd, 2014, David continued, pulling out another document. "You transferred $78,000 from your personal savings account directly to Hartford Digital's operating account. That's every penny you'd saved from working 3 jobs while putting Blake through business school." Sullivan pulled out a calculator. "Combined, that's $578,000. Hartford Digital's initial valuation, according to their first investor pitch deck, was $600,000. You and your father funded 96% of the company Blake Hartford claims he built alone. He told investors he was self-funded," Elena said. "I've seen the pitch decks, the interviews. He always said he started with nothing but an idea and determination. That's securities fraud, Sullivan said. But there's more? David pulled out printed screenshots. This is Hartford Digital's flagship software interface, the one that made them billions. And this, he placed another document beside it, is from your design portfolio, dated March 2015. They're identical. Elena stared at her own work. The color schemes, the user flow, the innovative navigation system that industry experts had called revolutionary. She'd created it all in their tiny apartment, working late into the night while Blake coded the back end. He'd promised to credit her, to make her a co-founder, to ensure everyone knew they'd built it together. Instead, he'd put his name on everything and erased her completely. He stole your intellectual property, Sullivan said. That alone is worth millions in damages. But, Elena, I need to be honest with you. This will get ugly. Blake will come after you with everything he has. He'll try to destroy your reputation, question your sanity, make you look unfit. Are you prepared for that? Elena looked down at Sophia, her daughter, the tiny person who depended on her for everything. The little girl who deserved to know her mother fought for what was right. He already slapped me on camera in front of 500 people, Elena said. He's denying his own daughter. He let my father die without paying back the loan. What else can he possibly do to me? The answer came 2 weeks later. Elena was nursing Sophia at Maddie's apartment when her phone rang. Sullivan's number. We have a problem, Sullivan said without preamble. Blake's legal team filed an emergency motion this morning. They're requesting immediate custody of Sophia. Elena nearly dropped her phone. What? They're claiming you're an unfit mother. They submitted evidence. Photos of you living in a studio apartment. Your bank statements showing $340 in assets. And Elena, they somehow obtained your medical records from college. How is that legal? It's not. We'll fight the admissibility. But they leaked them to the press first. The damage is done. Elena's phone started buzzing with news alerts. She opened one with shaking hands. Hartford wife's mental health crisis. Was tech billionaire the real victim? The article detailed her therapy sessions from 10 years ago. After her father's cancer diagnosis, the depression and anxiety medication she'd taken for 6 months while watching her dad slowly die. Normal grief. Healthy coping. But the spin made it sound like she was unstable, dangerous, a threat to her own child. The judge ordered a psychological evaluation before the custody hearing, Sullivan continued. It's tomorrow at 9 a.m. You need to pass it, or Blake gets temporary custody of Sophia until the divorce is finalized. He can't take her, Elena whispered. She's still nursing. She's 3 weeks old. I know. We're going to fight this. But Elena, you need to be perfect tomorrow. Calm, rational, composed. Give them no ammunition. Elena went to the evaluation. She answered every question carefully, explained her grief over her father, demonstrated her bond with Sophia, showed bank statements proving Maddie was supporting them temporarily, displayed the apartment where they were living, small but clean and safe. The evaluator, a thin woman with kind eyes, wrote notes and nodded. Mrs. Hartford, you're clearly a loving mother dealing with an extraordinarily difficult situation. I'll recommend that custody remain with you. Elena felt hope for the first time in weeks. The custody hearing was held 4 days later in a small courtroom that smelled like old wood and stale coffee. Judge Linda Williams presided, a stern woman in her 50s with sharp eyes that missed nothing. I've reviewed the psychological evaluation, financial records, and living situation assessments, Judge Williams said. This is a difficult decision. Elena gripped the table so hard her knuckles turned white. Mrs. Hartford, the evaluator found you to be mentally competent and a loving mother. However, the court must consider the child's material welfare. Mr. Hartford can provide a stable home environment, full-time childcare, and financial security that you currently cannot match. Your Honor, please. Elena stood. She's nursing. She needs her mother. I'm granting temporary custody to Blake Hartford, pending resolution of the divorce proceedings. You'll have supervised visitation, 2 hours per week. The gavel came down. That sound, that terrible final sound. No, Elena screamed. You can't do this. Sullivan grabbed her arm. Elena will appeal. Sit down. Blake stood, arranging his features into an expression of false compassion. Your Honor, I want what's best for my daughter. If Elena cooperates with the transition, I'm willing to allow 3 visits per week instead of 2. He said it like he was doing her a favor, like he was being generous, like he hadn't orchestrated this entire nightmare. She's my baby, Elena sobbed. You hit me. You threw me out. You canceled my insurance while I was pregnant, Mrs. Hartford, Judge Williams warned. Control yourself, or I'll hold you in contempt. A bailiff approached. Blake walked over to the court-appointed supervisor who'd been holding Sophia during the hearing. He took his daughter in his arms. Sophia, who didn't know him, started crying immediately, reaching for Elena, crying for her mother. Sophia! Elena tried to push past the bailiff. Baby, no, Mommy's here. Maddie had to physically restrain her as Blake walked out of the courtroom with Sophia. Sienna followed behind him, pausing just long enough to look back at Elena with a smile of pure triumph. The courtroom door closed, and Elena collapsed. 2 weeks after losing Sophia, Elena hadn't left Maddie's couch. She stared at the ceiling, counting the cracks in the plaster. 43. There were 43 cracks. She'd counted them so many times she had them memorized. Her breasts ached. The milk still came, even though there was no baby to feed. She pumped dutifully, storing it in bags she'd never get to give her daughter. The physical pain was nothing compared to the empty ache in her chest, where her heart used to be. The TV played on low volume. More coverage of Blake's redemption story, how he was bravely stepping up to be a father, how he'd overcome a toxic marriage to find real love with Sienna. How brave, how strong, how inspirational. Elena's phone buzzed constantly with messages from unknown numbers. You're a terrible mother. Blake was right to leave you. Give up before you embarrass yourself more. She'd stopped reading them, stopped responding to anything. What was the point? The only messages she read were the photos Blake's lawyers sent twice a day as proof she was being cared for. Sophia in expensive clothes Elena couldn't afford. Sophia in a designer nursery that cost more than most people's cars. Sophia being held by Sienna, who smiled at the camera like she'd won the lottery. Instagram showed more of the same. Sienna had posted a photo of herself holding Sophia with the caption, Step Mommy Duties, Blessed Life, New Beginnings. 13,000 likes and counting. Elena had thrown her phone across the room. It shattered against the wall. She didn't bother to replace it. Maddie worked 12-hour shifts at the hospital, then came home to an apartment that felt like a tomb. She tried everything, cooking Elena's favorite foods that went uneaten, putting on comedies that drew no laughter, talking about the case and the appeals and the plans for fighting back. Nothing worked. Elena was disappearing before her eyes. It was on a particularly bad night that Maddie found Elena standing at the window. They were 5 stories up. The street below was wet with recent rain, reflecting the city lights. Elena stood perfectly still, one hand on the glass, staring down. Elena, Maddie said carefully, approaching slowly like you would a spooked animal. What are you thinking? That it would be so easy, Elena said. Her voice was flat, empty. To just stop. Stop hurting. Stop fighting. Just stop. Look at me. Maddie gently turned Elena around, hands on her shoulders. Elena Marie Bennett, you are the strongest person I know. You worked 3 jobs to put that man through school. You gave him everything. Your money, your father's money, your designs, your ideas, your love. Everything. And you brought Sophia into this world despite everything he did. Tears finally came. The first tears Elena had cried in days. You don't get to quit now, Maddie continued, her own voice breaking, because that little girl needs her mother. And Blake Hartford needs to pay for what he's done, not just to you, to everyone he's hurt, to every woman he'll hurt in the future if someone doesn't stop him. I'm so tired, Maddie. I know, but you're not alone. The doorbell rang. Maddie reluctantly left Elena to answer it. David Cooper stood in the hallway, laptop under his arm, looking like he'd been up for 3 days straight. I found something, he said without preamble. Something big. Elena didn't move from her spot by the window. She'd heard that before. Another lead. Another piece of evidence. It never changed anything. Blake was winning. He would always win. But David opened his laptop on the coffee table anyway. Numbers filled the screen. Spreadsheets, bank transfers, account statements. I've been tracking Hartford Digital's financials for my article, David explained. There were irregularities, small ones at first, but I kept digging. Elena, Blake has been embezzling from his own company. Over the past 3 years, he's funneled $47 million into offshore accounts in the Cayman Islands. Elena finally turned from the window. What? He's been using fake invoices, shell companies, ghost employees, classic fraud. He's stealing from his investors, his board, everyone. And look at this. David pulled up wire transfer records. See who's a co-signer on these accounts? Elena leaned in. The name on the screen made her blood run cold. Sienna Brennan. She knows, Elena whispered. She's helping him. More than that, David pulled up employment records. Before Sienna worked for Blake, she worked for Marcus Whitfield. Does that name mean anything to you? Blake's former business partner, Elena said slowly. The pieces were starting to fit together. Blake forced him out of the company 5 years ago, stole his shares. Marcus sued, but lost. Marcus has been trying to destroy Blake ever since, David confirmed. And Sienna was his executive assistant before she conveniently became Blake's assistant 2 years ago. Maddie caught on first. She's a plant? She was sent to seduce Blake? That's my theory, David said. But here's the thing. The baby is real. I got DNA test results from Blake's doctor. Sophia is definitely his. So either Sienna fell for Blake for real, or she got pregnant by accident and couldn't back out. She's trapped in her own con, Elena said. The fog in her mind was starting to clear, and Blake has no idea. I have copies of everything, David said. Bank statements, emails, recorded phone calls between Blake and his CFO discussing how to hide the money. It's enough to send him to prison for 20 years. Can you testify? Elena asked. In court? Better. I can turn it over to the FBI. But Elena, if I do that, they'll take months to build a case. Maybe a year. Blake will have that entire time with Sophia. Elena closed her eyes. A year. Sophia would be walking by then. Talking. She'd call Sienna Mama. She wouldn't remember Elena's voice, or her smell, or the way she used to rock her to sleep. So what do we do? Maddie asked. Elena opened her eyes. The emptiness was gone, replaced by something harder, something that glinted like steel. We build our own case, Elena said. We get evidence he can't deny, can't spin, can't talk his way out of. And when he's standing on top of the world thinking he's untouchable, We burn it all down. David smiled. Now, that's the Elena Hartford I was hoping to find. 11 months passed. 11 months of transformation. Elena started with the law library. She checked out every book on corporate fraud, securities law, forensic accounting. She read until her eyes burned, taking notes in careful handwriting that filled notebook after notebook. During the day, she worked at a coffee shop, barely making enough to contribute to rent. At night, she studied. David sent her everything he'd gathered. She organized it, cross-referenced it, built timelines and money trails. On her wall, she created a map of Blake's crimes, connecting dots with red string like a detective in a movie. Except this was real. Every connection was documented. Every claim had evidence. Once a week, she visited Sophia. 2 hours every Wednesday at the Family Visitation Center, a depressing building that smelled like industrial cleaner. A guard watched through a window while Elena played with her daughter in a room full of donated toys. The first visit after 11 months of weekly sessions destroyed her. Sophia was walking now. She toddled over to Elena with uncertain steps, but she didn't know her, didn't reach for her the way babies reach for their mothers. When it was time to leave, Sophia cried not for Elena, but for Blake, who picked her up and carried her away without even looking at Elena. But every visit, Elena brought something: a book, a toy, a drawing, small things that said, "I'm still here. I'm still your mother. I'm still fighting for you." Catherine funded everything. Private investigators who tracked Blake's movements, financial experts who analyzed the offshore accounts, lawyers who built appeals and motions. The money flowed freely because Catherine believed in what they were doing. She visited Elena once a month, always asking the same question. "Are you sure you want to do this? Blake will come after you with everything." And Elena always gave the same answer. "He already took everything. There's nothing left to lose except my daughter, and I'm getting her back." The tabloids told a different story. Blake and Sienna were everywhere: red carpets, charity galas, magazine covers, power couple goals, Blake Hartford's redemption story, finding love after toxicity. Hartford Digital's stock hit record highs. Blake announced expansion into European markets. Everything he touched turned to gold. The slap was old news. His past was buried under success and spin. Elena transformed too. She cut her long hair into a sharp, professional bob. She bought a few good pieces: a blazer, a white suit, shoes that made her feel powerful. She learned to hold her head high again, to look people in the eye, to speak without her voice shaking. She wasn't the broken woman they'd thrown into the rain. She was someone new, someone harder, someone who knew exactly what she was capable of. 3 weeks before the annual Hartford Digital Investor Gala, David met Elena at the coffee shop where she worked. He slid a flash drive across the table. "Everything's here," he said. 3 years of financial fraud, testimony from 5 whistleblowers, recorded conversations, bank transfers, all of it. It's enough to send Blake to prison for 20 years. "When's the gala?" Elena asked. 3 weeks. Why? Because that's when we end him, in front of everyone who matters. David leaned back, studying her. "You've changed." "No," Elena said. "I just remembered who I was before I let him make me small." 1 week before the gala, Elena's phone rang. Sullivan's number. "Blake's attorneys called," Sullivan said. He sounded surprised. "They want to settle." Elena's heart lurched. "Settle how?" "Full custody to you. $10 million. Your father's loan repaid with interest. And a public apology." Elena sat down hard. $10 million. Sophia, an apology. Everything she'd fought for, everything she'd lost sleep over, all of it, handed to her on a silver platter. Why now? I don't know. But Elena, this is a good deal. Take it. You could have Sophia home tonight. Elena picked up a pen, looked at the settlement agreement Sullivan had emailed. All she had to do was sign. She thought about Sophia, about holding her again, about tucking her into bed every night instead of just Wednesday afternoons, about being her mother again instead of a stranger with supervised visitation rights. Her hand moved toward the signature line. Then her phone buzzed. A text from David. Turn on channel 7. Now. Elena grabbed the remote. A morning talk show filled the screen. And there, sitting on the couch, looking handsome and charitable, was Blake. We're announcing a new initiative today, Blake was saying. The Sophia Hartford Foundation. Named after my daughter, it'll provide resources for single mothers in crisis. The audience applauded. The host gushed about his generosity. Sienna sat beside him, touching his arm, playing the supportive partner perfectly. There have been ongoing legal issues with Sophia's birth mother, the host said carefully. Blake arranged his features into practiced sadness. It's been difficult. We've tried to reach out, offer support, but Elena has been combative. We're hoping she accepts our settlement offer and we can all move forward peacefully. Elena, if you're watching, please, for Sophia's sake, let's end this. More applause. The camera caught Blake looking directly into the lens, smiling. He knew she was watching. He was using her daughter's name for good publicity while simultaneously trying to buy her silence. Elena set down the pen. She called Sullivan back. Tell Blake's attorneys I decline. What, Elena? You're making a mistake. Let go of your anger and think about what's best for Sophia. I am thinking about Sophia. She deserves to know the truth about her father. And so does everyone else. We're going to the gala. Elena hung up and looked at herself in the mirror. The woman staring back was someone Blake Hartford wouldn't recognize. Someone he'd underestimated. Someone who was about to make the biggest mistake of his life into the biggest mistake of his life. Let's go ruin a party, Elena said to her reflection. The Grand Metropolitan Hotel glittered like a jewelry box. Limousines lined the curved driveway, depositing guests in designer gowns and custom tuxedos. Paparazzi shouted, and cameras flashed. The banner above the entrance read, Hartford Digital Annual Investor Gala, in letters 3 feet tall. Blake arrived with Sienna on his arm. She wore a scarlet dress that hugged her post-pregnancy figure perfectly. He wore a smile that said he owned the world. And why wouldn't he? His company was valued at $5 billion. He had a beautiful partner, a healthy daughter, investors who worshipped him. The past was buried, the future was bright. Inside the ballroom, 500 guests sipped champagne and networked. The orchestra played softly. Waitstaff circulated with appetizers that cost more per bite than Elena used to make in an hour at the coffee shop. Blake took the stage to applause. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for coming. Tonight we celebrate not just Hartford Digital's success, but our expansion into European markets. With your continued investment, we're projected to double our valuation within 18 months. More applause. Blake soaked it in, his smile growing wider. I'd also like to take a moment to thank the investors who believed in me from the beginning. You saw potential in a kid from nowhere, and I'll never forget that. That's when the main doors opened. Elena and Catherine entered together. Both wore white suits, stark and striking, against the dark formal wear surrounding them. The orchestra faltered. Conversations died. Heads turned, like dominoes falling. Blake saw her. His hand gripped the podium so hard his knuckles went white. Sienna followed his gaze and went pale. Elena walked down the center aisle. Her heels clicked on the marble floor, each step measured and deliberate. David and his camera crew followed at a discreet distance, filming everything. Every eye in the room was on her now. Blake tried to recover. "Ladies and gentlemen, if you'll excuse me for one moment." "Don't stop on my account," Elena said, her voice carrying clearly through the silent ballroom. "I'm very interested in your origin story. Please continue. Tell everyone how you're a kid from nowhere who made it big." Blake forced a smile, addressing the crowd. My ex-wife, everyone. Elena, this isn't the time or place." "No?" Elena reached the front, standing before the stage. "This seems like the perfect time. You're thanking investors who believed in you from the beginning. I'd like to introduce you to the very first investor." She pulled a document from her clutch. "June 15th, 2014. James Bennett, my father, wired you $500,000. The memo line says, 'Business loan, Hartford Digital Seed Capital.'" She held up the bank statement. David's crew zoomed in. Investors in the crowd pulled out their phones, some starting to film, others already Googling. Murmurs rippled through the room. Blake's forced smile slipped. "That was a gift," Blake said, "not a loan." "Really? Because I have text messages where you promised to pay him back once the company went public. How much did you give him when Hartford Digital sold for $200 million? Silence. "Nothing. You gave him nothing. He died 6 months ago, still believing you'd honor your word. He died never knowing you used him." More phones came out. The investors looked uncomfortable. This wasn't the inspirational story they'd been sold. Sienna stood up from her front row seat. "Security! Remove her!" Elena turned to face Sienna directly. "Hello, Sienna, or should I say, Marcus Whitfield's former executive assistant." Sienna's face drained of color. "For those who don't know," Elena continued, addressing the crowd now, "Marcus Whitfield was Blake's original business partner. Blake forced him out 5 years ago, stole his shares. Sienna here was Marcus's employee before she conveniently became Blake's assistant 2 years ago. Quite the coincidence, isn't it?" Blake descended from the stage, his voice low and threatening. "Elena, stop. Now." Elena didn't back down, didn't flinch. "Or what? You'll hit me again? The cameras are rolling, Blake. The whole world is watching." David's crew captured Blake's expression, the rage that flickered across his face before he controlled it. The calculation, the fear. "You're embarrassing yourself," Blake said. "No, I'm exposing you." Elena pulled out another document. "These are financial records from Hartford Digital. Over the past 3 years, you've embezzled $47 million from your own company. Fake invoices, shell corporations, ghost employees." She tossed the pages onto the floor. They scattered across the marble like accusation made physical. "You stole from the pension fund, from the employees who trusted you, from these investors." She pointed at the crowd. "From everyone." An investor stood up. "Is this true?" Blake's lawyer started to respond, but Elena talked over him. "I have bank statements, wire transfers, recorded phone calls between Blake and his CFO discussing how to hide the money. And this." She pulled out one more document. "The CO signer on your offshore accounts, Sienna Brennan. Your fiancé is an accessory to fraud." Sienna shot to her feet. "I didn't know. He told me it was for tax purposes." "Shut up." Blake whirled on her. "Don't say anything." The outburst confirmed everything. The crowd erupted in shocked murmurs. Phones were everywhere now, recording from every angle. This was going to be on every news site within minutes. "Oh, and Blake?" Elena's voice cut through the chaos. "Remember the paternity test you demanded? Sophia is 99.9% yours. You knew that 10 months ago, but you kept fighting me anyway because admitting you were wrong would make you look weak." She held up Blake's own paternity results, stamped and certified. "Your ego was more important than your daughter." The silence that followed was absolute. Even the orchestra had stopped playing. Blake stood exposed in the middle of his own party, surrounded by investors and colleagues who were seeing him clearly for the first time. Then the doors burst open. FBI agents flooded in, led by a woman in a dark suit. "Blake Hartford, you're under arrest for securities fraud, money laundering, and wire fraud." The agent approached with handcuffs. Blake's face went from confident to panicked in seconds. "No, wait, you can't. I didn't." The smooth talk deserted him. He was just a man now cornered and caught. "You have the right to remain silent." The agent cuffed him while cameras flashed from every direction. "Anything you say can and will be used against you in a court of law." Blake twisted back as they led him toward the exit. His eyes found Elena. "This is your fault. You destroyed me." Elena's voice was calm, cold as winter. "No. You destroyed yourself. I just made sure everyone could see it." They dragged him out as the press swarmed. The ballroom erupted into chaos. Investors demanded answers. Reporters shouted questions. It was beautiful mayhem. Catherine approached Elena and pulled her into a hug. "Thank you for saving my son from himself, even if he doesn't understand it yet." Maddie pushed through the crowd next, laughing and crying at the same time. "You did it. Holy shit, you actually did it." But Elena didn't feel triumphant. She just felt tired. 11 months of work. 11 months of pain, and it was finally over. 4 months later, the trial began. The courthouse was a gray monolith that seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. Reporters camped on the steps, protesters held signs. Some supported Blake, claiming he was being persecuted for his success. Others supported Elena and the employees he'd stolen from. The whole thing was a media circus. Inside, the courtroom was all dark wood and harsh fluorescent lights. Blake sat at the defense table in an orange jumpsuit, looking like someone had taken everything that made him Blake Hartford and stripped it away. No designer suits, no confident smile, just a man facing 23 counts of fraud. Elena sat in the back row with Maddie. She didn't want Blake to see her watching. Didn't want to give him the satisfaction. The prosecution's case was methodical. Financial experts testified about the offshore accounts. Charts showed exactly where the $47 million had gone. Accountants explained the fake invoices and shell companies. It was dry, technical testimony that made several jurors look confused. But then Sienna took the stand. She'd made a deal with prosecutors, testimony in exchange for immunity. She wore a modest gray dress and no makeup. She looked small and scared, nothing like the confident woman who'd smiled beside Blake at 100 charity galas. "Ms. Brennan," the prosecutor began, "can you describe your relationship with the defendant?" "I was hired by Marcus Whitfield to get close to Blake Hartford, to seduce him, destroy his marriage, and gather evidence for a lawsuit Marcus wanted to file." The courtroom murmured. Jurors leaned forward, suddenly interested. "Did you fall in love with Mr. Hartford?" Sienna's eyes filled with tears. "I thought I did. He was charming, powerful. He made me feel special. But looking back, I think I fell in love with the lifestyle, not the man." "Did Mr. Hartford know about the embezzlement?" "He orchestrated all of it. Every fake invoice, every shell company. He'd joke about it, called it creative accounting. He said rich people don't go to jail." Blake's jaw clenched. He stared at Sienna with pure hatred. His lawyer whispered something, but Blake ignored him. "One more question," the prosecutor said. "Did Mr. Hartford ever express remorse for how he treated his wife, Elena?" Sienna's voice broke. "No. He called her terrible things. Said she was dead weight. He'd finally cut loose. He laughed about the slap. said it made him look decisive, like he was making tough business decisions instead of hitting his pregnant wife. Several jurors looked at Blake with disgust. One woman shook her head slowly. When Elena's turn came to testify, she wore a simple gray suit. She looked directly at the jury, not at Blake. "Mrs. Hartford," the prosecutor said, "can you describe your contributions to Hartford Digital?" "I designed the original user interface. I worked as unpaid chief operating officer for the first 3 years, handling everything Blake didn't want to do. I convinced my father to loan Blake $500,000 from his retirement fund, and I gave Blake every penny of my savings, $78,000, to help him launch the company." "Did Mr. Hartford ever credit you for these contributions?" "No, he told investors he was self-made, that he'd started with nothing but an idea and determination." "Did he repay your father's loan?" "No. My father died believing Blake would eventually make good on his promise. He never knew the truth." Several jurors were taking notes. They looked sympathetic. "Can you describe the night of the assault?" Elena took a deep breath. This was the part she'd been dreading. "I was 8 months pregnant with our daughter. Blake invited me to his investor gala. When I arrived, he announced to 500 people that he was leaving me for his assistant. I tried to talk to him privately, and he struck me, across the face, hard enough to split my lip, in front of everyone, while cameras recorded it." "Did he apologize?" "No. He had security throw me out. Literally throw me out into the rain while I was 8 months pregnant." "What happened after?" "He canceled my health insurance while I was pregnant, froze all my bank accounts, filed false police reports claiming I was impersonating his wife, fought for custody of our daughter even though he knew she was his. He did everything possible to erase me from his life and destroy any chance I had of fighting back." Her voice stayed steady, but tears fell silently. She didn't wipe them away. "But I'm still here," Elena finished, "because my daughter deserves to know the truth, and so does everyone he stole from." Blake's defense attorney tried to paint Elena as vengeful, as obsessed, as someone pursuing the case out of spite rather than justice. "Mrs. Hartford, isn't it true you pursued this case because you wanted revenge on Mr. Hartford?" "I pursued this case because my husband committed crimes. Revenge would be hitting him back. Justice is holding him accountable. You stand to gain millions from this trial through civil damages. I stand to gain nothing except my daughter. Every penny of restitution goes to the investors and employees Blake stole from. I don't want his money. I want him to face consequences." The defense attorney sat down. He had nothing else. When Blake testified, he tried to look sympathetic. He apologized, said he'd made mistakes, claimed everything was misunderstood or taken out of context. But on cross-examination, the prosecutor destroyed him. "Mr. Hartford, did you embezzle $47 million from your company?" "I made aggressive financial decisions that were misinterpreted." Aggressive decisions. Is that what you call creating 17 shell corporations to hide stolen money? "It was for tax optimization. Tax optimization that involved draining your employees' pension fund. I was going to pay it back." "When?" "After you retired to your mansion in the Cayman Islands that you bought with the stolen money." Blake had no answer. The evidence was overwhelming. The jury deliberated for 4 hours. Guilty, on all 23 counts. Blake's face went white. His lawyer started talking about appeals, but Blake wasn't listening. He was staring at Elena, who sat perfectly still in the back row, showing no emotion at all. Sentencing was 2 weeks later. Judge Williams looked tired, like the case had aged her. "Before I pass sentence, does the victim wish to make a statement?" Elena stood, walked to the podium, looked not at Blake, but at the judge. "Your Honor, I met Blake Hartford when I was 20 years old. I thought he was my future. I sacrificed everything for him: my education, my career, my savings, my father's retirement fund. I gave him everything because I believed in us, in the partnership we were building. She paused. Then I got pregnant and I became inconvenient. So he erased me, publicly, violently, completely. He didn't just hit me. He tried to destroy my reputation, my finances, my relationship with my daughter. He wanted me to disappear. But I didn't disappear because I realized that if he could do this to me, someone he'd promised to love forever, he could do it to anyone, and he probably already had. She finally looked at Blake. I don't want revenge. I want accountability. I want my daughter to grow up knowing her mother fought for what was right, that we don't accept cruelty, that justice matters. Judge Williams nodded slowly. Mr. Hartford, you abused your power and betrayed everyone who trusted you. When confronted with the truth, you responded with violence. I sentence you to 18 years in federal prison. You'll serve a minimum of 15 for parole eligibility. Additionally, $200 million in restitution to defrauded investors and victims, including $45 million to Elena Hartford for damages. The gavel came down. Final, absolute. Full custody of Sophia Hartford is granted to Elena Bennett Hartford. No visitation rights until Sophia reaches age 18 and can decide for herself if she wants contact with her father. Another gavel strike. Another door closing on Blake's old life. They led him away in chains. He looked back once at Elena, mouthed something, maybe sorry, maybe not. She didn't respond, just watched him disappear through the door and out of her life. Outside on the courthouse steps, reporters swarmed. Elena held Sophia, who was 15 months old now, and didn't understand what was happening. Justice was served today, Elena told the cameras. Not just for me, but for everyone who's been told they don't matter. Blake Hartford will serve 18 years. My daughter will grow up knowing her mother fought for what was right. A reporter asked what she'd do with the settlement money. I'm starting a foundation, the Sophia Hartford Foundation for Survivors of Financial Abuse, to help women escape economically controlling relationships. Sophia grabbed Elena's face with both hands. Mama! Elena smiled. Her first genuine smile in 2 years. That's right, baby. Mama's got you. 6 months after the trial, Elena's life had transformed in ways she never imagined. She'd bought a small house in a quiet suburb, nothing fancy. 3 bedrooms, a backyard with a swing set, a kitchen where she could cook breakfast while Sophia played with building blocks on the floor. It was Sophia's 2nd birthday. The house was full of people. Maddie, who'd stood by her through everything. Catherine, who visited every week to see her granddaughter. David, who'd written a book about the case that was now a bestseller. A few neighbors, some women from the foundation, people who'd become her new family. The cake was homemade, the decorations were from the dollar store, nothing like the elaborate parties Blake would have thrown. But Sophia didn't care about elaborate. She cared about the people who loved her, about the presents wrapped in bright paper, about the chocolate frosting she was getting all over her face. You look happy, Maddie said, handing Elena a cup of coffee. I am, Elena admitted. Is that strange, after everything? No, it's healing. Catherine approached with a wrapped gift. She looked older now, the strain of Blake's crimes and imprisonment aging her, but she smiled when she looked at Sophia. For the birthday girl. Catherine, you've already given her too much. Let me spoil my granddaughter. It's all I have left of my son. Elena hugged her. You can see her whenever you want. You're not Blake. You're her grandmother. David joined them, laptop in hand. The article about the foundation went live. 5 million shares already. And publishers are calling. They want to turn it into a longer book, expand on the legal aspects. Will it help people? Elena asked. It already is. Your foundation's website crashed from traffic. Thousands of women reaching out for help. The doorbell rang. A delivery person handed Elena a certified letter. The return address made her stomach drop. Oakwood Federal Correctional Facility. Is that from Blake? Maddie asked. Elena nodded. She opened it with trembling fingers. The letter was handwritten. Blake's distinctive scrawl. Dear Elena, I don't expect you to read this. I don't deserve your time, but I need to say things I should have said years ago. You were right. About everything. I destroyed the best thing in my life because I was too insecure to appreciate it. I'm in therapy now, actually trying to understand why I became the man I did. It doesn't excuse anything. I don't want your forgiveness. I just want you to know you were always enough. The failure was mine, not yours. Tell Sophia that her father loved her, even if he showed it in the worst possible way. I hope you find happiness. You deserve it. Blake. Elena folded the letter and tucked it away. What did it say? Maddie asked. It said goodbye. She returned to the party, to Sophia's laughter, to the warmth of people who actually cared about her, to the life she'd built from the ashes of everything Blake had tried to destroy. A year after sentencing, Elena made a decision. She drove to Oakwood Federal Correctional Facility. Maddie had argued against it, said Elena didn't owe Blake anything. But this wasn't about owing. It was about closure. The visitation room was divided by thick glass. Elena sat on one side, phone in hand. Blake was led in wearing prison orange that made his skin look sallow. He'd aged a decade in a year. Hair graying at the temples, lines around his eyes. He sat across from her and picked up his phone. They stared at each other for a long moment. You came, Blake finally said. I came. How is she, Sophia? She's thriving. Smart, funny, stubborn. Blake smiled slightly. Gets that from you. And you. Silence stretched between them. I got your letter, Blake said. About the foundation, the women you're helping. I'm proud of you. Don't. Don't what? Don't try to take credit for something good that came from your abuse. I didn't build that foundation because of you. I built it despite you. Blake nodded. You're right. I'm sorry. Elena studied his face. Are you? Really? Or are you just sorry you got caught? Blake thought about it. Really thought about it. 6 months ago, I would have said I was sorry I got caught. But I've had a lot of time to think in here. A lot of therapy. Elena, I destroyed everything good in my life because I thought success meant power. That power meant respect. That respect meant I'd finally be enough. But I was enough with you. In that tiny apartment before the money, I was enough then. And I threw it all away. Why did you hit me? In front of everyone? Because I was terrified. Sienna made me feel powerful. You made me feel human, vulnerable, and I couldn't handle that. So I destroyed you before you could see how weak I really was. Elena felt something loosen in her chest. Not forgiveness exactly, but understanding maybe. I forgive you, Blake. He looked stunned. What? I forgive you. Not for you. For me. Because carrying hate is exhausting, and I want to be free of you. Completely. Blake's eyes filled with tears. Thank you. But I won't forget, and I'll make sure Sophia knows the truth when she's old enough. All of it. That's fair? When she's 18, if she wants to meet you, I won't stop her, but it'll be her choice. Will you tell her I loved her? I'll tell her you're her father, that you made terrible mistakes, that people are complicated, and she gets to decide what that means to her. That's more than I deserve. Elena stood. It is. Goodbye, Blake. Elena, wait. She paused. Thank you. For fighting. For not letting me erase you. You saved my life by destroying it. I didn't save you. You'll have to do that yourself. Elena hung up the phone and walked toward the exit without looking back. Behind her, Blake sat alone in his orange jumpsuit, watching her leave. Sunlight streamed through the high windows, illuminating the dust motes floating in the air. He'd lost everything. His company, his freedom, his daughter, his future. But maybe, in some twisted way, Elena had given him something too. The chance to become someone better than the man who'd struck his pregnant wife in front of 500 people. Maybe redemption was possible, even for someone like him. But that was his journey now, not hers. Elena walked out into the sunshine, free. 2 years after the trial, Elena stood in a public park watching Sophia chase bubbles. Her daughter was 3 years old now, full of energy and laughter, and questions about everything. She had Blake's eyes, and Elena's determination, and Catherine's love for fancy hats. It was Sophia's birthday party. Nothing elaborate, just a park pavilion with balloon arches and picnic tables. But it was full of love. Maddie brought her new girlfriend, a teacher who made Sophia laugh. Catherine arrived with presents as always, spoiling her granddaughter shamelessly. David came with his wife and 2 kids, who immediately started playing with Sophia. And there were others. Rebecca Torres, who ran the Texas chapter of the foundation. 3 other women who'd escaped financially abusive relationships with the foundation's help. A community college professor who'd been an investor in Hartford Digital and lost everything when Blake went to prison, but who said watching Elena fight had inspired him to rebuild. This was family now, not blood, not obligation, just people who'd chosen to be there. A stranger approached, a man in his 40s with kind eyes and an easy smile. "Excuse me, are you Elena Hartford?" Elena tensed slightly. 2 years later, and she still got recognized sometimes. Usually it was fine. Sometimes it wasn't. "Yes? I'm Marcus Reed. I'm a therapist specializing in trauma recovery. I've been following your story, your foundation's work. Would you ever consider speaking at a conference about resilience?" Elena relaxed. "Maybe. Can I think about it?" "Of course." He handed her a card. "No pressure. I just think your story could help a lot of people." After he walked away, Maddie grinned. He was cute. "Maddie, I'm just saying, you're allowed to be happy, to move forward. I know, I'm just not ready yet. That's okay too." Sophia ran up, tugging Elena's hand. "Mama, cake time." Elena scooped her up. "Okay, birthday girl." Everyone gathered around the pavilion. They sang happy birthday. Sophia blew out her candles and made a wish. Elena closed her eyes and made one too. Not for Blake to suffer, not for revenge or justice, just for this, for more days like this, for her daughter to grow up happy and safe and loved. The Sophia Hartford Foundation had helped over 10,000 women in 2 years. Elena worked there full-time now, running support groups and connecting women with lawyers and safe housing. Some days were hard, hearing story after story of abuse and control and violence, but other days were beautiful. Watching women find their strength, helping them rebuild, seeing them smile again. Catherine had become a fixture in their lives. She visited 3 times a week, always bringing some extravagant gift that Elena pretended to disapprove of, but secretly loved. She'd set up a trust fund for Sophia that would pay for college and beyond. She'd funded scholarships for women leaving abusive relationships. She was trying, in her own way, to make up for raising a son who'd hurt so many people. David's book had become a bestseller. The Millionaire's Mistake: How One Woman Took Down an Empire. The title made Elena cringe, but the content was good. Thorough, honest. He donated half the proceeds to the foundation. Blake's company had been liquidated, the assets sold off, to pay restitution to investors and employees. The Hartford name, once synonymous with innovation and success, was now a cautionary tale taught in business schools, a warning about unchecked ambition and the consequences of fraud. Blake himself had become a model prisoner. According to Catherine, who still visited him monthly, he taught GED classes to other inmates. He'd completed multiple therapy programs. He wrote long letters to Catherine about the person he was trying to become. Elena didn't read those letters. Didn't need to. His redemption was his own to pursue. She'd forgiven him. But forgiveness didn't mean reconciliation. It just meant she was no longer carrying his crimes around like stones in her pockets. As the sun set over the park, Elena sat on a bench, watching Sophia play with the other children. She thought about the woman she'd been 2 years ago, broken, desperate, standing at a window, 5 stories up, wondering if it would be easier to just stop. She was glad she'd kept fighting, not for Blake, not even for justice, really, but for Sophia, for herself, for every woman who needed to see that you could survive the unsurvivable. Her phone buzzed, a text from an unknown number. "Hi, this is Rebecca Torres from the Texas chapter. We just helped our 100th woman this month. Wanted you to know. This work matters. You matter." Elena smiled and tucked her phone away. The work did matter. She mattered. And that was enough. "Mama," Sophia called from the swings. "Push me higher." Elena walked over and pushed her daughter toward the sky. Sophia squealed with delight, her laughter carrying on the evening breeze. This was happiness. Not the fairy tale she'd imagined at 20, not the mansion and the magazine covers, and the perfect life that turned out to be built on lies. This was real, messy, complicated, beautiful. This was enough. 5 years after Blake Hartford went to prison, Elena sat in her office at the Sophia Hartford Foundation headquarters. They'd outgrown the small office space a year ago and moved into a proper building with conference rooms and a support group area and private meeting spaces for legal consultations. The foundation now operated in 15 cities. They'd helped over 50,000 women escape financially abusive relationships. They provided legal support, temporary housing, job training, childcare assistance, and therapy. They'd changed laws in 3 states, making financial abuse easier to prosecute and giving victims more protections. Elena was 37 now. She'd started dating Marcus Reed, the therapist she'd met at Sophia's birthday party 3 years ago. It was slow and careful, both of them bringing baggage from past relationships. But it was good. He made her laugh. He understood trauma and healing. He loved Sophia like she was his own. Sophia was 5, about to start kindergarten. She was bright and curious and kind. She knew her father was in prison. Elena had explained it in age-appropriate terms, that he'd made bad choices and hurt people, that he was trying to become better but had to face consequences first. "Will I meet him?" Sophia had asked once. "When you're older, if you want to, yes, but only if you want to." Sophia had nodded and gone back to coloring. She didn't ask again. Catherine visited every week, as constant as the sunrise. She was 70 now, moving a bit slower, but still sharp as ever. She'd divorced Blake senior years ago, reclaiming her maiden name and her independence. She split her time between New York and Paris, living the life she'd always wanted before marriage and motherhood had constrained her. The doorbell at home rang one evening while Elena was making dinner. Marcus answered it. A messenger with a letter from Oakwood Federal Correctional Facility. Elena's hands shook slightly as she opened it. 5 years of letters. She read them all, but rarely responded. This one was different. "Dear Elena, I'm writing to let you know I'm being transferred to a minimum security facility next month. I'll be eligible for parole in 10 years. I don't tell you this because I expect anything from you or Sophia. I tell you so you're not surprised if you see it in the news. I want you to know that the therapy, the classes, the work I've been doing, it's not about getting out early. It's about becoming someone who deserves to be out. Someone who doesn't destroy the people he should protect. I don't know if I'll ever be that person, but I'm trying. I hope you're happy, Elena. I hope Sophia is thriving. I hope you found the peace I stole from you. You deserved better than what I gave you. You deserved everything. Blake. Elena folded the letter and set it aside. Marcus came up behind her, resting his hands on her shoulders. You okay? Yeah, I'm good. And she was. Blake's letters didn't hurt anymore. They were just words from someone she used to know. Someone she'd loved a lifetime ago in a different version of herself. The foundation held its annual gala that weekend. 500 people packed into a hotel ballroom. Survivors, supporters, donors, advocates. The banner read, 5 years of freedom. Elena took the stage to speak. She looked out at the crowd and saw faces she recognized. Women she'd helped. Women who'd helped her. A community built on survival and strength. 5 years ago, Elena began, I stood in a ballroom not unlike this one. My husband slapped me across the face in front of 500 people. He chose his mistress over his pregnant wife. He threw me out into the rain and tried to erase me from existence. The room was silent. Tonight I stand before you in a different ballroom. This time, I'm not being destroyed. I'm celebrating. Celebrating 50,000 women who've escaped abuse. Celebrating the volunteers and lawyers and therapists who make this work possible. Celebrating survival. She paused, gathering her thoughts. People ask me if it was worth it. All the pain and the fighting and the years of struggle. And I tell them it wasn't about revenge. It wasn't even about justice, really. It was about truth, about refusing to be erased. About showing my daughter that you don't accept cruelty, that you fight for yourself, that you never, ever let someone destroy who you are. The crowd erupted in applause. Elena smiled, feeling the weight of everything that had brought her to this moment. After the gala, she went home to find Sophia already asleep, Marcus reading beside her bed, until she drifted off. Elena kissed her daughter's forehead and whispered, I love you, baby girl. Later, she stood at her bedroom window, looking out at the quiet suburban street. Marcus came up behind her, wrapping his arms around her waist. What are you thinking about? He asked. About the woman I used to be. The one who believed love meant sacrifice. Who thought making herself smaller would make her partner bigger. And now? Now I know better. Love doesn't ask you to disappear. It asks you to show up fully, to be seen, to take up space. She turned in his arms. Thank you for seeing me. Thank you for letting me. They stood there in comfortable silence. Two people who'd found each other after learning the hard way what they didn't want. The next morning, Elena woke to Sophia jumping on her bed. Mama, it's Saturday. Can we go to the park? Yes, baby. Let me make breakfast first. They spent the day at the park. Sophia busy on the swings, the slides, chasing other kids around the playground. Catherine joined them for lunch, bringing an elaborate picnic basket that was completely over the top and absolutely perfect. Marcus played tag with Sophia while Elena and Catherine watched from a bench. You've built a good life, Catherine said. A real life, not the performance Blake wanted. I have, Elena agreed. It's not what I imagined when I was 20, but it's better. It's real. Do you think about him, Blake? Sometimes, but not the way I used to. Now he's just someone from my past, someone I learned from, but not someone who defines me. Catherine nodded. I still visit him, you know, Once a month. He's different now. Really different. I don't know if that matters, if it changes anything, but he is trying. That's good, Elena said. I hope he finds whatever he's looking for. I really do. But it's not my job to help him find it anymore. As the sun began to set, they packed up their things. Sophia held Elena's hand on one side and Marcus's on the other, swinging between them. I love you, Mama, Sophia said. I love you too, baby. Will you always be here? Always, no matter what. They walked to the car, a normal family, ending a normal day. Nothing dramatic, nothing newsworthy, just life. Real, messy, beautiful life. That night, after Sophia was in bed and Marcus had gone home, Elena sat at her desk and opened her journal. She'd started writing after the trial, at her therapist's suggestion, a way to process everything that had happened. She wrote about the day, about Sophia's laughter, about Marcus's kindness, about Catherine's steady presence, about the foundation's work and the women they'd helped. And then, for the first time in 5 years, she wrote directly to Blake. I forgive you. I've said it before, but I'm not sure I really meant it until now. I forgive you for the slap, for the humiliation, for trying to erase me. I forgive you for stealing my father's money and never paying it back, for making me doubt my own sanity, for all of it. Not because you've earned it, not because you deserve it, but because I deserve peace. And I can't have peace while carrying anger. You took a year of my life, but I took back my future. I built something beautiful from the ashes of what you destroyed. I found myself again, the self you tried to erase. Sophia is thriving. She's smart and kind and strong. She has your eyes and my determination and Catherine's love for beautiful things. She'll decide for herself one day whether she wants to know you. Until then, I'm raising her to be brave, to speak up, to never let anyone make her small. You taught me what love isn't. Marcus is teaching me what it is. Catherine taught me that family can be chosen, not just inherited. Maddie taught me that loyalty matters more than blood. And Sophia taught me that some loves are so big they remake you completely. I don't think about you much anymore. When I do, it's with something like pity. You had everything, and you destroyed it. You could have been great. Instead, you'll be a cautionary tale. I hope you find peace in whatever time you have left. I hope you become the man you're trying to be, but I won't be there to see it. My chapter with you is closed. I'm free. Finally, completely free. Goodbye, Blake. She closed the journal and put it away. Then she walked to Sophia's room and stood in the doorway, watching her daughter sleep. The nightlight cast soft shadows across her peaceful face. This was what she'd fought for. Not revenge, not justice. This, the right to live her life on her own terms. The freedom to choose who she became after everything fell apart. Blake had tried to erase her. Instead, he'd revealed her. The strong woman who'd been hiding behind good wife and supportive partner. The fighter who'd been buried under compromise and accommodation. She was grateful for that, in a twisted way. Not grateful for the pain, but grateful for the person she'd discovered in the struggle to survive it. Elena walked to her own room and climbed into bed. She was tired. It had been a long 5 years. But she was here. She'd made it through. Tomorrow, she'd wake up and make breakfast. She'd take Sophia to the park. She'd work on the foundation's expansion into 3 more states. She'd have dinner with Marcus. She'd call Maddie and laugh about something ridiculous. She'd video chat with Catherine, who was currently in Paris, living her best life. She'd live, fully, completely, without apology. The woman Blake had slapped in that ballroom 5 years ago was gone. She'd died the night Elena stood at a window, 5 stories up, and decided to keep fighting. In her place was someone new, someone stronger, someone who knew her own worth and wouldn't accept less than she deserved, someone free. Elena turned off the light and closed her eyes. Tomorrow would come, life would continue, and she would be ready for it. Because she wasn't the millionaire's mistake. She was the survivor of his biggest mistake. And that made all the difference. She smiled in the darkness and drifted off to sleep, dreaming of bright tomorrows and the sound of her daughter's laughter. The end. Not of her story, just of this chapter. The best chapters were still to come. Remember this: you are never too broken to rebuild. Your worth is not determined by how others treat you. It's determined by how you treat yourself after they're gone. If this story moved you, hit that like button, leave a comment sharing your thoughts, share it with someone who needs to hear this, and subscribe so you never miss another powerful story like this one. This content was carefully researched, crafted, and manually edited by our team to bring you meaningful lessons and inspiration. Thank you for watching.